So it's after 6 o'clock. I see the quorum here. So I will call together the May 2021 meeting for the Board of Health for the town of Chelmsford. The first thing I want to do is welcome William Sanowski. Congratulations on your win. And I hope this is a good thing. I was told when I came on a couple of years ago that this was the sleeper board, and they ate pizza and everything was quiet. I don't think I've had a single meeting that it's been quite like that as promised. So I'm used to this. For tonight, it looks like the first item on our agenda is election of officers, since we've had a town election. Rich, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, perfect.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you
Okay,
loud and
great.
clear.
Thank you. Thanks.
Can't really
So,
see you though.
What's that?
Tilt your screen a little bit because all we can see is your
Oh,
nose.
okay.
down.
Okay, right there.
I thought he was showing off his pecs there.
Whatever. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, I see it now.
There
Okay.
you go.
All right. Okay. All right. we're
Okay.
good.
So in terms of how to go about this, I think traditionally that since we have 3-year terms and there's 3 of us, it's whoever's about to come up at the next election has usually been the chair. And then
Yeah.
the next in line is the assistant chair, or vice chair, and then the third one is the secretary. That's the way that we have traditionally done it. That's not the way it's been done half the time I've been here, in part because I took over Eric, and I have been blanking on his name all evening. Kaplan. Because
Yes.
it took over his final year that we kind of scrambled things for a couple of years. But that said, if we went back to the original way, that would mean that I was the chair for another year, that Rich was the vice chair, and that William was the secretary
Clerk.
and clerk. That's the official title?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
clerk.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but that said, I will let the 2 of you decide if that's the way you want to go, if you want to scramble things around, whatever you like.
That's fine with me. As I was thinking out loud, the fact is that I think that this will work out well, particularly in the fact that we're not through COVID, and that, having you, Eric, a physician, still as chair and leading it till this mess is over, I think is advantageous to let this cycle go through, and then have it change as good times finally come through here for us. So
Okay.
I'm definitely in favor of doing that and voting that way.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay.
Okay, so the slate then is for the chair to be Eric Meikle, the vice chair to be Richard, and then the clerk to be William. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Yes.
The next item we have on the agenda is the approval of minutes. And Mr. Sanowski, am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, that's good. Yep.
Okay. If you've seen us before, that basically we read through things and make sure that it's as we remember, make comments. And once people are ready, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
Street. I'm done because I was there, so it makes it easier.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion to accept?
Yes, make a motion to accept minutes.
And in
I'll
this
second.
case, since I was there, I'll second it if that's okay with you this time. And we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again. Next item is the hearing. We're going to put that aside because that will occur at 6:30, so that we'll move on to incoming correspondence. Sue, what are we doing to promote people to sign up with the mosquito control project this year?
So So I believe that the first date, I can't remember if it's actually the end of May. I'll actually have to go back on their website. Particularly what we do is we post the link to the Central Mass Mosquito Control website on our Board of Health website. And then we will also put a post out on our Board of Health Facebook page, letting people know that that link is available if they want their property evaluated for mosquito spraying.
And the April 21st date on this, have they
So that-
started already, or is that with regard to,
That was the
Aerial.
lava siding. That was they do the helicopter, they do the lava siding. So
Okay.
that took place the end of April. On that, they had postponed it a couple of days because of weather. And then they send, after they complete it, they actually test the mosquito pools, pre-lava siding and post-lava siding, and they tell us the percentage that they accomplished as far as that goes. So I believe that we just received that report in, but it was after we had posted the minutes.
okay. And was this the first private well testing? Is that a household?
So that was a, it basically 20 Boston Road is where we had the issues last year with contamination. And DEP thought that some private wells in the proximity should be tested. So that is this came from the 20, it was 20 Boston Road. And as a result of the 20 Boston Road spill, they wanted to test the private well at 27 to 29 Summer Street.
So they're making a request. They found some elevations.
Yeah.
They're not instructing, they're not having them do any particular cleanup or anything at this time.
But it's just to monitor the levels.
The actual report is that their DEP's testing equipment was below the standards. They couldn't reach it, so they've requested additional certified laboratory to do testing.
Okay. So the Pan Am Railways is just the thing that they do every year?
Every year, yep, and they notify us every year about it.
And with the PFAS, that these are just reports, they haven't changed anything that they've instructed the town to do?
No, not as of
Time.
now. Nope, not yet. This is just the summary.
Okay. Okay. In that case, I will listen for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the incoming correspondence.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. So that once again, we're unanimous. We'll move on to outgoing correspondence.
So have you seen plans on this thing or whatever they're proposing? I mean, is this all outside? Is it inside? I'm assuming it's,
Are you talking about the doggy daycare?
yes, yeah.
So, yes, it's basically a commercial kennel, but they're, like I said, they're just looking to get their special permit for the use regulations as well as the reduced parking. So,
Okay. But I mean, that's what I'm saying, indoor, outdoor kind of thing based on how close nearest residential dwellings are to this particular property. I don't have a map to sort of see where this 200 Turnpike is, what building it's in.
let me see, I can, Donna, you can share your screen, right?
Yeah.
So if you look under the appeals folder for the 200 Turnpike Road, you could actually click on the stamped plan so you could show it, the two links, and share your screen. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Noise and odor particularly can, on a not well-maintained scenario, can be an issue. And I just didn't know how close they were to some of the residential apartments and or homes. The homes, of course, predominantly are across the street, the single families. But where this particular one is, I'm just trying to picture it in my head and go, 20 square feet. All right. So it's way down.
Let me know when you want me to change. I got a little bit more here.
Yeah. But bottom line, it's the last building on Turnpike before you get to Mill. Is that what that is? If I was seeing the thing before, it was sort of showing it to be down the end of Mill is on the, yeah, is this the opposite side to where the water tank is, which means there is no neighbors.
Right.
And if there is,
Have a view, Donna, that shows the Mill Road and Turnpike, maybe the next one.
yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to picture 220 Mill. But as I said, it looks like that last commercial building,
Yeah.
it's got quite a separation with the water tower. Yeah, looking at that there, I know it's a lousy scale, but that's literally the last building on that side of the road is a commercial building. And if they're taking part of that and turning it into, there are butters on three sides of commercial buildings. The Mill Road residents are on the other side, which is quite a distance with that steep hillside parking thing that they used to have. And on the opposite side of the street was the water tower. So there shouldn't be anybody on that side of the street either. So
There
I
are
would- I
two
would-
houses next to the water tower.
yes.
They have a common driveway for that matter.
Right. No, what I'm saying is that the buffer, the distances and whatever should be reasonable.
Mhm.
Okay. In particular, they're proposed. It looks like they're putting it all inside the building from what I'm catching on this proposed thing there. Are they putting anything outside? What's that dotted? It's hard to read what that area there is to the left.
I can't expand it here. Let's see.
Proposed Sinlawn premium turf. So that the dotted area to the
So that's a
left
fenced area where they can let the dogs out.
appears to be
Yes,
so.
that's what it is. And then they kennel them and keep them inside at night.
Right.
Again, I don't know how many feet they are away from those two houses that are on the opposite side of the road. You got the buffer off of Turnpike, the parking area, then you got the road, and then you got, plus that building, it starts on a hill, so it might sit down a little bit too, my recollection of the, so it may not be too much of an issue
Yeah.
to
I don't
the neighbors.
I don't remember it being a concern when I first looked at it.
Yeah.
It's been a little
Okay.
while.
Okay. Okay, well, no, that's all. As I said, by knowing where it is, didn't want it stuck between those apartments and down the middle of Turnpike, where you had hundreds of people might come on, you know, of noises or odors or kind of thing. Here, it's going to be pretty minimal potential. So, hey, thank you. Thanks.
Donna, could you go to figure 3? And the reason why I want to see is that in here, they have a straw water erosion barrier and they say a catch basin and under the front. Is that a catch basin under the parking lot there?
Probably it's about runoff and where the runoff
Do
goes.
we need to worry about where the urine goes?
Well, I mean, obviously the outside area, okay, it sounds like they're putting that rug down. They're gonna have to, it'd be something that, who licenses them? The town clerk?
I think it's
Kennels?
building and planning.
Kennels?
We don't have anything to do with licensing.
No. But what I'm saying is I think the idea of having drainage and that any kind of waste runoff need to be through some mechanism of cleanup, but also to mechanism of washing down and whatever that wastewater goes.
Yeah.
So it's
These
hard
plans,
to see.
as you know,
Yeah.
These plans, as you know, too, go to all the different departments for
Okay.
comment.
Okay. No, again, as I said, the location is one of the better things along the entire turnpike. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything unusual about the limited accessory apartment?
Nope, just the typical in-law.
And then there's a statement of covered dumpster requirement.
So the Hub Foundation has an existing building on there right now, and they're gonna build another commercial building. So currently, the dumpsters that they have on site are not enclosed, and then they would need an additional one for the second building. So they're aware of that. Mark had gone out there to look at the property. It's not really near a whole lot. People can't really see. It's pretty far back. But he did tell them the front dumpsters where they're currently located need to be either moved, removed, or enclosed, because those are at the front of the property.
Okay.
Okay.
And isn't Jesse Road right down by Turnpike?
Yep.
Yes.
So this is Turnpike Day. So poor family. So this is simply that did they already bury the dog and notify us, or did they ask to bury the dog?
They notified us because the death of the dog they felt was pretty close. I think, did the dog pass, Donna? I think.
Yeah, the dog had passed, and they looked up the regulations, and the regulations did need to have approval from the Board of Health.
That was very considerate of them.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. That said, I will entertain a motion to accept the outgoing correspondence if anybody wants to give it.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to outgoing correspondence.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous. We have about 8.5 minutes before the hearing, so we'll move on to old correspondence,
Okay.
old business. And depending on how this goes, we might have to interrupt it to keep on time, be respectful for our hearing. Sue, do you want to do the COVID updates?
Sure. So basically, our total number of cases of COVID right now in Chelmsford are 3,149. Confirmed cases, we have 2,931, and probable cases, 218. We've had a total of 120 deaths, and our current active cases are 74, which is a little bit of an increase. What we have seen over the last 2 weeks in particular is we're seeing a lot of increase in cases in daycares in much younger people. And I'm guessing, Eric, that you're probably seeing that in your PD practice as well. Overall, Chelmsford as a whole is in the yellow. So that's good. We did end up hitting the red for a couple of weeks there. Everybody should be aware that the governor has made a brand new timeline of reopening guidelines, which basically started last Friday with the fact that people do not have to wear facial coverings if they are outside and can maintain the 6-foot distance. And then there's a whole list of guidelines that he has put together with different timelines and different dates, with the anticipation that if all of the numbers trend the way that they hope to, that things will be fully open by August 1st. That's the hopeful plan. So we shall see. We're still doing contact tracing, case follow-up, and we're in communication with the schools and the head school nurse on an absolute daily basis. We are planning on having a discussion with them because now, as of yesterday, I believe, all the students are now back in school full-time, full days. And some of them, you know, their seats are now 3 feet apart, not 6 feet apart. And the big challenge is the whole identification of the close contacts should somebody test positive. And, you know, as we've always seen, we are seeing the household spread. Still, we're not seeing a huge amount of spread caused by kids being in school. It's still mostly household as well as extracurricular activities. So that's where we're at with that. I don't believe that the hospitals are overcrowded at this point. Eric, I'll let you talk about that. And then as far as COVID goes, as far as UPS, we are still having significant challenges with UPS, but I'm going to let Donna do the summary on UPS because she's been involved with the visits. We've had 3 or 4 Zoom meetings with representatives from there as well as their lawyer. But before Donna does UPS, Eric, you could probably just update us on the hospitals.
Well, I was going to say that the hospital, the typical COVID population ranges from about 7 to 70 over the course of the pandemic, and it kind of goes up and down when you expect it with the holidays. Lately, it dipped down to the teens, and it's now gone up and sort of hovers around 20 at this point. It's changed that you don't have these people in the ICUs, they're on the floors. You have a lot more people that are diagnosed in the emergency room and kind of sent out the door because they tend not to be the at-risk population. Those people are vaccinated at this point. The data has shown that pretty much any group outside of toddlers has about the same amount of transmission from person to person in comparable situations. But toddlers are basically twice because they don't wear the mask and they lick everything. So that, yeah, you'll see more. Where our patients are getting it, we don't know because, you know, the ER says 60% unknown source for us. We don't know ultimately where it came from, but any parent who says that they have allergies and the allergies don't change when they go indoors, outdoors, whatever, those parents have in a lot of cases been positive. So people just want to sort of believe if they have something mild that it's not COVID because they want to continue. And that's why they're keeping out amongst other people and exposing them. I would expect, and this part's going to go on a little bit under speculation, but to make sure we kind of think about how the department is going to respond, is that people act on their sort of lower brainstem function. If they're afraid of COVID, they get the shot. If they're afraid of the shot, they don't get the shot. And I think that at some point that the large centers are going to spend what they do, and that people are going to come around to doing what they always do, which is to put it back in the department and in the physician's wheelhouse to give the shots, because it's a slower process, but I think it takes a little bit of kind of discussion to convince them why they need to. I'll put it out there that the way that I've been explaining it to patients of late is you basically get to choose. You're going to go in 1 of 2 rooms. They each have 1 million people in them. In one room, one person's going to die, and then the other room, 10,000 people are going to die. You pick which room you want to go into. Your choice is never to get the vaccine or not get the vaccine, because getting anything has risk factors. It's a choice between the risks of the COVID vaccine, which are exquisitely small, and the risks of catching COVID. And even if you think that you're buff and healthy, it doesn't mean your grandmother is, it doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to do well with it. So that making sure people get the vaccine, I think that's where we have to go with this one. Otherwise, we're actually seeing the return of some of our old colds and flus and things. Well, not flu, but we have strep, we have colds. I still haven't seen an ear infection in a year, which is amazing for a pediatrician to say. But I've got croup and stomach bugs and stuff, so people have got to be making contact. So
I'm hoping we
And-
see an increase next week after the, the after effects of April school vacation. We kind of have another week
Yeah.
to get through that.
yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's going to happen, I think that probably today, tomorrow, sometime early this week, I would expect that they're going to start the process of approving Pfizer for the 12 to 15-year-olds.
Mhm.
And the studies aren't out just yet, but when they come out in probably, I'd say June or so, that's going to be about a month or two after that, we'll probably be giving the vaccines down to 5 years old. And when Moderna finishes their study, it'll be down to probably 6 months old. So probably by fall, we'll be doing that.
Yeah. Just in time for flu season.
Yeah. Well, let's hope people have learned some things, because it was kind of nice not having to deal with flu too much this year.
Exactly.
So, Donna, with regard to UPS, we have about 30 seconds before the hearing.
Let's wait.
You want to wait on this one? Okay. She says knowingly. Okay. And I hate to be a stickler, but I want to make sure that anybody who wants to jump in at 6:30, they got 15 more seconds to jump in. Okay, I have 6:30. So at this time, we're going to jump to the hearing. A request for variance and/or extension of existing permit by Kesey Family Limited Partnership relating to Drum Hill Plaza and Tropical Smoothie Grease Trap. And I will apologize profusely if I mispronounced the name. So that said, Sue, how do you want to progress with this?
Well, I think everybody pretty much that's involved in this meeting knows that 6 months ago, the middle of May, the Kesey family came before the board represented by Attorney Hausler, requesting a variance to not have to install an exterior grease trap at Tropical Smoothing. And there was long discussions about whether or not there was belief that there was an exterior grease trap there, and then discovered that it wasn't an exterior grease trap. We since have a little bit more information about the fact that there was never an exterior grease trap, that apparently it was a septic tank at one point. And now they're coming up on their 6 months. And so Attorney Hausler is coming before the board again to discuss an extension of this variance. So in your packet, you have all of the information. There were 2 letters. So the first was the April 12th letter that Attorney Hausler did submit to us with a lot of information. And then on last Friday, we received an additional letter from him with further information, and that was in response to an on-site meeting that Donna and Mark, our 2 health inspectors, had on-site with Mr. Rosell. So I guess, Doug, if you want to start, then.
I just want to, as a board, I think that we really want to make sure that we stay equitable in how we need to be a little bit careful that we don't start treating a business differently than we treat another business. So that said, Doug, did you want to jump in?
Sure. Can I be heard?
Yes, but I got feedback.
Echoey, yeah.
Okay. Um, I have an audio problem.
Well, this time we can hear you at least.
Is there somebody else in the room also on the line that's making that echo?
No. Let's see if this will work. It may mean that we won't hear as much. I'm not sure if you can hear this. Can you hear this?
We
Yes,
still have
I can.
the reverb.
Yeah.
All right, let me try to alter this for a second. And perhaps this will be quieter.
That
Yeah.
sounds a little bit better. Yes.
Okay, the only problem I have is my client can't hear me as well, so that's a problem.
I can't hear them. We
You
can't hear
can't-
them.
They can't hear what you're saying,
They're calling me.
but you could call on your
He
phone.
has a suggestion. Oh, so we can mute the screen and we can talk with this.
All right,
Mhm.
if you could unmute my phone, which is 256-6080.
Donna,
Yep.
can you unmute? There's one phone number. It ends in 6080. That's Doug Hausler's.
Yep.
Can you unmute that and he'll then mute his computer?
He has to unmute himself. I don't have him muted.
Oh, Doug? Okay,
I think you should be able to hear me now.
yes.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm still not good with the technology. So first of all, thank you for your time and your efforts, all of you. If there was ever a case for a variance, I think this might be the factual setting for it. The idea is that strict application of the regulation is just going to be very incredibly burdensome and harmful to both the tenant and the landlord. And we could demonstrate that there would be manifest injustice. That's the legal standard. And the other part is that I think we have proven with the materials we've submitted that we can hit the same degree of the health protection that the regulation is intended to meet without strict application of the regulation. And to demonstrate that so your files would be complete, we have provided you with significant amount of details relating to the types of equipment that have been installed, the gallons per minute, the frequency of the pumping, the amount that already demonstrated in the last 6 months. Every time it's been pumped, it's been a fraction of the capacity. I'm talking like less than 10% of the capacity is being used in the GB50. So it's overwhelmingly working properly. That doesn't seem to be an issue. So I think we are hitting the regulations goal. The other issue that we wanted to talk about is that not only is the GB50 working properly, but it's actually better than the system if you had an external trap. And we've given some testimony of the individuals that work with these kind of materials on day in, day out basis. And that's been confirmed by Rick Rosell, who's well known to the board. He's been installing sewers for 30 plus years locally. We've had the general contractor of Tropical Smoothies, who has used indoor interceptors in other locations with great success. And I believe that there was one concern that was raised by the health inspectors when they came, which was they wanted perhaps another type of interceptor to be installed on the left side of the 3-compartment sink. And we have given testimony through Jay Elston, a local licensed plumber, who says he can install the proper equipment on the left side. So we even have more backup on backup of backup. I mean, it's overwhelming what is already going to be in place here. I think it's more important, however, we get across, not just that there's not going to be any injury to the line, because that's what the goal is, and we're meeting that and have met it for 6 months. But I'm going to turn it over for a minute briefly to Phyllis Gervais, who is the landlord. I think she's been living with this for 6 months, and I'd like you to hear her perspective and what she's been doing and actively trying to address. So I'm going to turn that over to Phyllis.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I'm reading a statement simply because I get very nervous when I'm speaking in public, even if it's on a Zoom. I would like to start by clearing up some misconceptions. Some of you seem to think that I knew the town required an outside grease trap for this location. That is absolutely untrue. There was never any mention of an outside grease interceptor until towards the end of the project when the rough plumbing was being inspected. The construction manager of Tropical Smoothie, his name is Cliff Darby, he never came to us saying we needed an outside trap. I assumed when this didn't happen that it was because either A, they installed the GB50, which was a state-of-the-art indoor-outdoor grease trap, or B, because it was a smoothie restaurant that basically only had one panini maker and really didn't produce a lot of grease. So the conversation never happened. When I called the contractor about this after our first meeting, he said to me, the plans were approved by everybody in town with just that one indoor, outdoor, it's called GB50 grease trap. I'm pretty sure the Board of Health saw those plans because they made a few changes to the sinks. So I was never aware that there was a problem until the very end of this. It was at the rough plumbing inspection that we were informed by the plumbing inspector that the town might require an outside grease trap. And then we asked the sewer department to provide us with the plan showing the outlay of the outside of the parking lot. They showed us a plan that was stamped by the health department showing that there was an outside grease trap there. That made sense to me because there was a restaurant there, Chelmsford, the Chelmsford Center Deli at some point many years ago. So at that point, the contractor figured, okay, there's a grease trap there. We got the plan from the town. We'll continue doing our inside work. They filled in, plus they had approval from the town with just the one grease trap. So they continued their work, filled in the floor, went about their business. And we called the contractor, Rick Rosell, to find the grease trap. I will admit it took him a while to get there, and I don't know why. It could have been COVID. I have no idea, but it took a while for him to look for the grease trap, and it wasn't there. That was basically the first time I heard of any of this, and I was sick to my stomach that she wasn't being allowed to open. When Rick dug up the sidewalk and saw that there wasn't a grease trap there, the man that owns the pet store came out and said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "Grease trap." And he said, "I think it was never a grease trap." He sort of knew the story. I wasn't involved with this plaza. This was my father 25 years ago. I didn't know anything about this. So that is why, obviously, they didn't get their permit. Now, most of you don't know me personally. I think Mark on the Board of Health is probably the only person with whom I have worked over the years. I'm very proud of my properties and have always 100% complied with any of the town board's requests. I do not try to wiggle out of doing the right thing. As a matter of fact, if you look at my properties and the way Drum Hill Liquors is run, it's top-notch, 100% classy all the time. I'm detail-oriented and very conscientious and am proud of my reputation in town, and I want to keep it that way. I am very proud to say I've never been in a predicament like this, and I never want to do it again. It has been very tough on Irby and I. I've owned Drum Hill Liquors for 40 years, and I've not had one infraction, not one minor serve, not one problem. So this is not how I do business. This was not done on purpose at all. I have worked diligently to come up with a plan that I hope answers your concerns. Sean Mullen is the national distributor for this company that makes these grease traps. I have been working with him for 2 weeks, along with Jay Elston, to find a secondary grease inceptor that will work, that will fit, and that will work. He says in his proposal, and I think you have this in your packet, that adding the GB1 will result in a performance efficiency higher than that of a typical local setup of a point of use inside and a gravity concrete trap outside. Now, Sean did this, not on generic calculations. He got all of the information from Irby, what she sells, each breakdown, how many paninis, how many this, how many that. Also asked on the different sinks, what would create the most grease, where we should put the secondary interceptor. And there was a lot of work that went into this and a lot of research. I also want to express just a little bit of dismay that this wasn't brought to our attention at the beginning of the project, as is the typical route. And maybe I'm missing something here. If I am, I'm so sorry. Please, I'm not an expert at this. For instance, at 83 Parkhurst Road, which is, I own that property and I manage it as well. There's a new Eggmania restaurant that also applied for permits last year. I'm not sure of the timeline, if it was before her or after. But I called him today and I asked him, did his plans require an outside grease trap? And he said yes. And I said, and then what happened? He said, the town asked him to hire a company to scope the line to make sure that there was an outside grease trap there. That never happened with us. So we just assumed, because of the nature of this restaurant, that we didn't need one. Cliff Darby, which is the general contractor that did the work at Tropical Smoothie, as well as Rick Rosell, have confirmed that the only way to connect an outside grease trap now is to saw cut the entire floor of the restaurant from the front door to the back kitchen, and then we would have to dig up the parking lot from that, put in a grease trap, and then connect to the road. I think his numbers were somewhere around 50,000, 60,000. Rick says it's higher. And now that her floor has been discontinued, of course, to add insult to injury, she would have to tear up the entire floor and replace the entire floor. And the whole project, if we were lucky and nothing went wrong, which that's never happened, would be at least 3 weeks that she'd have to close. I just hope, please, to everybody, just take a step back and just look at everything and understand this was not done with malice. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis. And I think you can hear and see the sincerity and the facts supporting why a variance here is appropriate. This is not a finger-pointing exercise. It's more important that we are able and have demonstrated that strict enforcement of the regulation is just not practical. There was a question raised if this could be done through the back entrance, and it can't because of the elevations. I don't know if Richard had a discussion with Rick Rosell about that or others. There was somebody that had a discussion from the Board of Health about the elevations in the rear. So that's not doable. There really are no other alternatives. And I would very strongly urge you to look at the data we've given you. It indicates it's working and then some. And we have other measures in place to not allow menu changes, continue the pumping and provide certifications that it's been done. I just ask you to use your fair judgment that in this particular instance, this is precisely why you have a regulation allowing for a variance. I can't stress this any longer. You will put a business, a new business, 25 employees out of business, laid off, another $70,000+ of, after more than $500,000 have been installed by the tenant. The financial harm, the risk of loss is very dramatic here. And when I compare that to how this is being measured and being performed, which is consistent with the regulations, I think it's overwhelming for a variance. We're here to answer any questions that the board may have or the Director of Health. We're here to get to compliance. We're here to make sure everybody's satisfied and that they'll feel good when a variance is granted under these circumstances. So I thank you for your time on that.
Thank you. Rich, this is kind of, you gonna say, Sue?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, because I know, Rich, you want to address things. I just want to let Phyllis know that through the health department, we are well aware of how well you run your businesses. And we don't want you to think for 1 minute that we thought that this was intentional. I think that there was absolutely some miscommunication along the line right from the beginning. I think that stemmed from the fact that our prior inspector was not initially aware that an exterior grease trap was required, and therefore, and we said this 6 months ago, that when the plans were signed off, she didn't realize that an exterior grease trap was required. So as far as that went, initially, that was why the initial plans were signed off. When she did realize that there was an exterior grease trap required, she did have the discussion with the contractor and informed him that there would be an exterior grease trap required. And when everybody looked at the plans, as Phyllis indicated, I think everybody thought that on those plans, it was in fact a grease trap. And then obviously we found out down the road that it was not. My concern with the whole timeline there is, as far as just the way construction happens and the way things do happen, you don't finish and finally pour a final floor until all your plumbing is in fact hooked in. So, you know, that's where some of, I think, the disconnect came in. And I think that's probably where, Phyllis, you may feel that we were, you know, saying that we, you know, thought you were trying to be underhanded, but it didn't make sense from a health department's perspective that any contractor would go ahead and put in a finished floor until such time as all plumbing is completed. So, you know, I appreciate all of the research that has gone into this. I do believe that Eggmania came in pretty far after this was going on. I mean, they're just now starting to do some of their work, and obviously they're very well aware of the exterior grease trap. But Donna did go out there because Rick Rossell had reached out and did go out with Mark. So at this point, I'm going to allow Donna to talk about the summary of her visit on site on Thursday with Rick Rossell.
Can I say one thing, Susan?
Sure.
Sue? Okay. One thing that Cliff Darby told me today, and this is hearsay, but hopefully you believe me. We didn't get him into the meeting, but Cliff was the general contractor. Michelle told Cliff that she didn't think that the town enforced the outside grease trap. That might have weighed in his decision to close the floor. I just found that out this morning.
Fair enough. Fair enough. From where I stand, it's hearsay. I wasn't there. I'm
not saying it was still right. I'm just saying that there was a lot of lack of communication on both sides.
I was also informed from Michelle prior to her leaving. She had informed me that she had told the contractor that he should drop a line and a camera to make sure where the location was prior to any of the finished work being done. But again, I was informed with that verbally, so we can't go backwards as far as that goes.
I agree.
Forward.
I agree, so I agree 100%.
All right, so I'll discuss, Mark and I went out and met with Rick Rossell the last week, and he was certainly very, very informative. What his discussions was about the back of the building being at a grade level that was unable to put in a grease trap and then connect off to the right side of that back building. I did ask him at that time, is there able to be a pump that is put in to also make sure that that can go through? I did have further discussion with Rich on that afterwards, Richard Day, and there is a pump that is able, not a grease pump, you can put in a grease trap, and then you can add a pump after to help with that elevation. So I'm sure all of you can discuss that after, and Rich can fill you in a little bit more. We did then have some discussion. Rick mentioned that they, Tropical Smoothies, would like to put an interior interceptor or another grease trap inside. At that point, Mark, our other inspector, did say that he did not believe one would fit there. So there's a little bit of discussion back and forth on whether that would make a difference, not make a difference, so on and so forth. I do see in the letter here that it says that the Board of Health had requested it. It was a discussion by Rick Rossell, and then Mark's discussion was clearly on whether one would fit and whether it would make a difference or not. I just wanted to clarify that piece. Then there was further discussion on coming out of the front of the building. And Rick had mentioned that obviously the real intention was to connect to that grease trap that was on the building plan, that there was a grease trap there. However, I did question Rick on it, that the contractor had sealed the floor prior to even connecting there, because on the notes that we have from Michelle, and speaking to Michelle again today, that she had been out there many times to discuss with the contractor, who was Chris Neal, and with the owner of Tropical Smoothies. The floor was still opened at that time, and asked when it was going to connect. And that's the conversations and the notes that I have from Michelle. Now, when I did speak with Rick while I was there, I did ask, he did say, well, yes, but we thought we were going to be able to connect. My question to him was, why would it have been sealed and then connect after? Why wouldn't you have looked into that grease trap well before, days or weeks before a grand opening of a new business? He really couldn't answer that question at that time. So then kind of went into the subject of not being able to add a grease trap to the front, because that would then tear up the floor for the business. It would cause some hardship, and also concerned about the parking lot, which could cause some hardship to other businesses at that time. And that it could cost up to, in his mind, about $75,000 to do that. So those were the three discussions that we had on site, and shared that we would obviously share it at this meeting this evening. And I had shared with Sue, our director, on those different scenarios. So that's kind of where that whole conversation had started. And I know Rich and I have had many conversations about what is right for the town. And maybe Sue, we should probably turn it over to Rich to kind of go into some more of those details. Rich, instead of me recapping our conversations, maybe it would be best that you do.
No, that's fine. Again, bottom line is that, Roselle kind of reached out to me and said, can I go over there and meet with them and this, that, and whatever. And it kind of put me in a difficult position as a board member, not as an employee of the board, representing the department, and then also been voting on the issues. It was kind of decided that I really can't go out there without the rest of the board some kind of vote saying that they're authorizing me to do that. But in getting the information from Rick, some of the information that he gave me, and also too what Mark and Donna had seen in what my discussions with the plumbing inspector about what he saw in there and what was there and what wasn't there and whatever, I finally got a pretty clear picture of what exists there. And basically, all the new fixtures were brought to the rear of this piece of this unit. And at that point, they were tied into through this the GP 50 or whatever the number was that they put it into. But then the outlet of that then went back into an existing common line that tied the two existing, and this is what I was told, two existing bathrooms that were there, and then tied together with other existing bathrooms, everybody to the right, 2 or 3 units down, in that a common line then came out through, I believe, the fish place, and that's where the sewer department is showing a line coming out of there, and quote unquote, out to the manhole into the street and whatever. Clearly, one of the issues that exist is that you can't mix waste. That usually becomes a real problem where you're mixing waste from toilets along with operations of any type of food establishment. And bottom line is that they all come back and then they feed back through this line to go up and affect the abutters. So the only solution that I could see that wasn't going to be as full as the original kind of intent that, well, Jesus, everything must go to the front, everything's going to go out to this tank that's out there, and they're going to somehow tie over to that and tie into it and then go over to, quote unquote, the sewer connections that are in the front property. Bottom line is that where the existing unit that was put in the ground is near the 3-bay sink, if you standing front to back took a right-hand turn and went straight out through the building there, which is approximately 10-12 feet. I didn't get to measure it, so I don't know, but that was what I kind of implied. And an exterior grease trap was put out in the rear parking lot literally in that deep notch that exists back there. And then, as I said, some of the data finally was coming back to that there was a question of, was the elevations of the existing pipes and how they tied together before they went out to the front and then out through the fish pet place, do the elevations work, for a gravity flow? And what's being told to me is that it doesn't. If you take a pipe and run it out the side and install a strap on the back, you're going to be lower than the pipe that's inside. Now, clearly there's scenarios, and I've seen them where you, and again, it doesn't have to be this way, but it's a suggestion that parties have bought what they call 2-compartment tanks. And the compartment is used as the grease trap, and the second part is used as the effluent pump chamber. And so therefore, the flow coming from in-floor grease trap, which is all the flow from all the kitchen, goes out the door into a tank just outside the door. And again, I understand there might be some things buried along the back building and whatever, so the actual location out there, you have to be a few more feet from the rear of that building jog. I don't know without, dig safe and whatever being able to do. But the idea is that the elevation issue can be resolved, the effluent from the plumbing code interceptor that's in the floor, passing through the area grease trap, which is the Board of Health regulation. That effluent then goes into this effluent pump chamber. It's not a special pump. And by that point in time, going through those 2 different size tanks, that the effluent that's coming out of there is reasonably clear to the point where the pump pumps it literally right back down the trench that you dug to bring the pipe out of the building. You can put right next to it the pipe coming into the building, but of course it's a flexible pipe pumps up. So it's say a 2-inch pump. I'm just throwing out a size, a 2-inch piece of pipe. You then tie that back into where the connection was made of that interior that was put in the floor, and it goes right into the existing plumbing that this whole place tied into, and it then goes back through the 1 or 2 units side and then out front. And therefore, when that pump kicks on, it's sort of gonna just push and flush everything down the line, so that if there is anything that gets past these traps, which again, my experience with the grease traps that's reasonably maintained is we don't have. So what I'm saying is that there is a proposal that you could put a grease trap in the rear, okay, the rear parking lot. It would take digging up the floor from that unit out to the side. That same trench digging, and this isn't going to interfere with the operational business inside the line, the floors, that kind of stuff isn't going to be affected by this at all. 90% of the work is going to be done outside, okay, installing a tank. And again, I'm not saying it has to be one, it could be 2 separate tanks of different sizes and whatever. But the idea is that I've seen them more compact, put together, okay? And the effluent is then pumped back. And as I said, we've done something similar to this in a number of places on Summer Street, where the flows were disconnected, went outside through a grease trap, came back in, and then went into the internal flows. So I'm not here to price what that tank and pump installation would cost, but I'm pretty sure that it's, number one, it's nowhere near as costly as running to the building, and also 2, in installing any other kind of thing that's there into the floor and plumbing and whatever. And also 2, the shutdown time to do this, where literally the only thing that has to be quote unquote done during business time is the connection from the in-floor interrupter out through the wall. Everything else can be done without interfering anything. And then you have that one job inside in which to do. I'm not a plumber, I'm not a contractor to cut door and whatever, but it's not going to be weeks. Personally, in some of the construction issues we ran into at large things that we had to do, some changes with grease traps and everything else and whatever, Most of these things, in some cases, were done overnight. I'm not saying that that's a absolute, but in an overnight and or a quote unquote full day, once the other stuff is put in the ground, connections back up so that it's working again is something that should be done in a reasonable period of time. As I said, I don't like to fix times on contractors and what they do and this, that, whatever. But my experience in replacing, rotted out underneath buildings, underneath slabs that are tied in, no one knows where they are, and replacing them, sleeving them, piping, get things in and out of buildings and whatever, run into an awful lot over 40 years. So that's the
Rich,
recommendation that I think is reasonable to be in compliance with it, and also to be in compliance, not to be as overall harmful by cost or time or shutdown or whatever you're going to do. I think it's something that I've seen it done, so it's not that it's impossible to do it, and that it'll definitely work. It's an option that'll work. As I said, the elevation differentials don't make, as soon as you put a pump in, whether it's 6 inches or 2 feet, 5 feet, it doesn't make any difference.
Rich,
Okay,
with regard
done.
to the regulation,
Yes.
what about the suggestion of having an internal grease trap?
Well, again, as I said, I mean, the obvious issue of the outside has a lot of things in the fact that the state food code basically sizes grease traps by the number of seats and other uses and whatever. And, a seat restaurant or whatever should have close to a 500-gallon minimum tank by the specs that they talk about. But then they set a minimum of no less than 1,000. We didn't set that. The state, if you're going to put an exterior grease trap in, it puts everything in regards to problems outside the building. Okay, and therefore it to put anything inside creates problems. It's already creating problems to try to maintain something in and out and whatever kind of thing. When we look at the entire town, since the sewer started, and hundreds and hundreds of units have tied into the sewer and have had to deal with this issue of internal grease traps, which is a plumbing code, and the external ones, which is a Board of Health code. It's all happened. It's all done. It's been working, and there's not hopefully there's not a lot left. I mean, new construction is a whole different thing, but of course that during new construction, all this stuff could be put in beforehand. I mean, you could take a strip mall and put a pipe inside, in most cases outside, right around the rear of a building, and leave a stub off to everybody along the line, and just cap them off and sit there and just have them in case the future brings that someone needs to do something different. Then boom, you got the line already in the ground, and you put pitches on it, whatever, for a future trap to go in the ground kind of thing. So, there's a lot of stuff that's happened over the 30 some years of sewer that I was on the sewer commission and on this here. And clearly, talking with the sewer division, intent always was to protect the overall system. Okay. That the job was to reduce as much as possible through the redundancy of an interior, which is plumbing code, and exterior, the Board of Health thing through the food code. That's what we've done for hundreds of these things. And again, if it's still doable, I'm throwing out that recommendation. That's the kind of thing that we can do.
If
Go
I
ahead.
could
I'm sorry.
interrupt, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we're just going a little far afield. The question here is, what is in place? Is it working today? And it is.
No, it isn't. That isn't the question.
Yeah, Richard, I didn't interrupt you. I'd like the same courtesy.
Go ahead.
So, the chair's running this, I thought. So I'll address it to the chair. I'm asking the board, I've given you regulations from other towns that don't require an external trap. I've already given you, well, it was agreed at the last hearing, these regulations have not been reviewed for over 30 years. They've not been updated. The technology has changed dramatically. The fact that this particular equipment is called external internal or internal external proves the point that you may not even need a variance because by definition, it solves what the goal is. Now, we don't have to go with the, is the sewer line protected? The sewer line is protected. How do we know that? Because every time it's been pumped in 6 months, the amount that's been pumped is minuscule. And I mean minuscule compared to the capacity of the machine. And we're not talking even approaching 25% of capacity. We're talking less than 10% of capacity. So the system is working. Now, Richard's idea may be entirely great, but right now it's not going to work. And none of us have the details to support that it can be done or what it's going to cost and what the backdoor entrance approach is going to do. No one knows that. What we're asking for is if it's working, and as long as it's working and it's continued to be pumped, we're hitting the goal. And I think it's about time that the board, when it gets past COVID, God willing, and we all get past it, it can look at the regulations and update them because of the significant advances in the technology. So I don't disagree with Richard that we want to protect the sewer system. We all do, but we are. And why make someone go through hoops that don't have to go through? You just leave them be. It's working. There was mistakes, there were miscommunications. Yes, that's precisely why a variance is allowed. I'm not saying we're going to be strictly compliant with the regulation. We're not. That's the purpose of a variance. And we're hitting the goal of the variance, which is manifest injustice and that we can hit the same degree of health and environmental protection. And we're already doing that. We're demonstrating that. So respectfully, I just ask that the 3 members make a vote on the motion about granting the variance. And I appreciate the other idea. We can investigate Richard's concept, and we're happy to investigate it going forward. That's not objectionable. And if it makes sense that we can do that, we'll probably be the ones coming back to you saying, here's how we can do it. But right now, we don't have that option available. And no one knows if it's going to work or not. That's why we need the variance now.
Sue
Thank you.
or Donna, have we had a statement from the sewer superintendent?
Yes, my conversations with Rich, speaking with the sewer superintendent, was that he totally believes that our regulation is current and should stay current, and should not be changed because it does protect the sewer system. Rich, do you want to clarify?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I had a discussion with Mike Visnakis, and again, I mean, he's been around for 29 years and whatever, and has followed this process, for all that period of time. I would like to sit there and say, so what I'm saying is they're basically still saying, as a division, superintendent of that division, that they don't see an issue with our regulation as it's being interpreted. It has been interpreted for all these connections that have occurred throughout the town. I do take a little exception to the fact that somehow they want to imply that these new interceptors that they're putting in the floor are dramatically any different than a miniature little septic tank. If you look at the profiles, all you do is have something on the ground that might be made from a different material. Yes, there's a restrictor on the flow, so you can't flood the thing out and push everything out like a straight shot would be. But the fact is, it's nothing but 2 T-baffles inside a small thing. And everybody wants to talk about, how everything's new and indifferent and whatever. We'll tell the people with the asphalt plants about, this is all the new technology. Yeah, the new technology is not so great.
Rich,
I don't want to be
That's my
compared,
opinion.
All due
That's my
respect.
opinion.
I don't want to be compared to, the bituminous asphalt plant. That's inappropriate. What we have here is a system that's working, that's entirely inappropriate. All I'm asking for this board to consider is the system working? It is. Is it meeting all the goals and the protection of the regulation? It is. What is the problem then for a variance? And no one's doubting that no one's challenging the fact that the system is in fact working.
so I do have one comment on that, is from my understanding, and this is just my understanding at this point, and anyone on this can go either way. My understanding is with an interior grease trap, that if you run hot water through, which the capability is there, because it should be in a restaurant, that it will dilute for a short time any of the grease or solution to be able to go through, to get through to the sewer system. And the reason for the exterior grease trap is it only runs cold water, and there is no way that it could actually be dissolved anymore. And it actually captures anything that would go through that interior grease trap so that it would not go out into the sewer system. Can anybody say that I'm not accurate in that statement?
I don't know.
I'm not an interceptor genius on this, but I don't believe that someone would be writing in the submissions we gave you, and I want to quote it so that I don't get challenged on it.
Well, I mean, there's one last thing. From being on the sewer commission, Board of Health.
Let me read it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
The resulting performance efficiency would be higher than that of the typical local setup of a point of use inside and a gravity concrete outside. That means more protection to the sewer system than is typical in the area. And that's coming from someone who is an expert, someone who's doing this day in and day out. So I take that at face value. Better than what is the inside and outside approach. So
Well, the
that's
bottom
what
line
I'm going with as an expert.
Okay. Well, to end this, the bottom line is that when they decided to make a decision on this sewer project, there was a lot of discussion about the simple fact that old sewer systems allowed just plumbing things, everything just went straight to the street and whatever. And the town's view of it was basically, listen, we got a brand new sewer system coming in. We want to have it to be the best that it can be, because downline, depending on the waste and the strength of the waste and whatever's going into, we pay more if the waste is stronger, and we pay less when it's less. But the bottom line is that we looked at that issue and basically said, do we want to repeat and deal with the same maintenance issues that older cities and towns have had to? And this isn't a blame game, has had to, where they got all these units running straight in, and then the community is having to deal with the consequences versus the source. Whoever makes the source has to deal with the source, kind of thing. And that was the basis for the original thing, and the basis for the original thing in relationship to continuing with a regulation that requires exterior grease traps, and that it has a track record of itself in regards to what's going on in town with the units that we have in town. And I don't see any data that says that this style of system can be competed without treatment, unless you're doing some kind of process, which none of these other things do any kind of treatment to it. So,
but is anybody challenging? Is anyone challenging the fact that in this particular application and these particular circumstances, I'm not talking a generic rewrite of your regulation. These are unique facts. The menu is incredibly low on FOG materials, fats, oils, and grease. The menu won't be changed.
Yeah.
The amount of food that's here, it's so minuscule in this particular application that we don't even have to get to the question about what works in other areas of the town or what other applications are out there. In this instance, this system works. And that's all we're asking, is to be permitted to use a system that is working, but it is at variance with your regulation. I don't want to condemn the process of regulations here. That's not our goal. I'm not looking to undermine it. I'm just saying we need to vary it under these particular circumstances. And that's all we're asking the board to do. And I don't think it's a big ask.
Donna, to answer your question, on page 2 of the GB1, there is a section on the top of the right side, high temperature kitchen water. It says if there's water over 150 degrees Fahrenheit, drain water temperature valve and approved backflow prevention assembly must be installed. And they have 2 diagrams as to how that can, how it can be achieved. But essentially, you can't put the hot water straight into the system. It has to have something to cool it before it gets in there.
So something to cool it before it gets into the grease trap?
Right.
Okay, yeah,
So it's page 2 of the GB1.
okay, thank you.
So
I feel like we're really kind of going in circles. I really request the board to consider the application at this point.
like I said, I'm trying to figure out how we can equitably apply the regulations. The problem with the variance is that if we start having it be sort of free form for every business, and right now I'm kind of stuck in between the concept of the internal, external, and exploration of what Rich was talking about, for seeing if there can be something out the back with the pump that can be more in line with what everybody else in town is having. And that said, I think that the way I'm leaning right now would be to have a variance for a limited period of time, and then to look into the idea of having a system out back like Rich has described, and if it's feasible, then to install that in that time frame. That's where I'm leaning now, and I'll look to my other board members for their comment on this.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you know, obviously you always have to look at all the specifics of what it is, and therefore figuring out what that options is and what that option cost is, and that what that option's impact is to do. As I said, I'm only going by some experience that I've had in other scenarios that I've dealt with, and have found that it's been the most cost-effective scenario. And it's also been the most, what I call, permanent solution to the issue, where it's not this constant situation of restriction from variant, you know, to menu, to everything else and whatever. The world changes, and menus would like to modify to meet those kinds of things. So in the long term, once an infrastructure is put in that has the long time history. I mean, there's hundreds of communities in this state that don't have any of this other additional restriction, because it's past tense. They've got hundreds of them existing, and they go backwards and try to redo everything, kind of things. So
Would you
they
have a
just let it
sense
go.
of,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
of what type of time frame that to do the investigation and then potentially to install?
Well, I
Are we talking
mean,
2 months, 6 months?
personally,
At
somewhere
least
between 2 and 3, I think. I mean, I didn't hear anything in the background, but between 2 and 3 months, you should be able to figure out what the scenarios are and the impacts and whatever are. And in regards to installation, it, again, as I said, it's not super complicated things in the fact that, you know, cutting the floor, laying pipe in both in 2 directions, and putting into the tank and wiring up a pump, kind of thing. You know, they're being done every day, everywhere, not just in Chelmsford, but everywhere else. It shouldn't be, but again, as I said, yeah, a minimum of 2 months, and I'll leave it to the rest of the board in regards to whether they think, something a little bit longer, has any advantages, disadvantages to it. So
Sue?
if
Mr.
you're asking
Chairman.
me, I think that time frame sort of locks it in.
That, the back area that Richard's talking about has a lot of ledge in it, so all ledge. So it's not as simple as might be presumed. So I would request minimally a 6-month period. We will investigate it. We'll report back to the board what the results of that investigation are.
If we get it sooner, Jim.
If we can do it sooner, we will turn it over sooner. We have no problem with that. But I'd like to have the 6-month period, because between trying to get contractors to do work plus COVID equals right now a disaster. So you can't get people to do work right now. They're all preoccupied, pre-booked. So it's going to involve some time and effort.
Did we lose Dr. Meikle?
Nope, I'm here. Can you see me?
Yeah,
Did I
we
go
see it now.
blank for a second? So-
It's fair, no.
Sue?
Again, I mean, bottom line is that I think some reasonable time should be set in regards to the report back. And then we deal with the time that it takes to get someone to do it. But to find out the difficulties / or costs that may be involved. Yes, I do know that as you start to proceed to the back area, that it gets rockier and rockier, okay? They do have what they call ledge tanks that are thinner and shallower, so therefore, you don't have to go as deep. But again, that's something secondary. But the issue is, we should set some kind of time frame on how long it should take to do the investigation to figure out what the things are,
Okay.
and then the time frame to get any kind of installation if the data.
So if we're
comes through.
talking about just the investigation, Sue, would 3 months sound appropriate
I think
for the
so.
department? This
Yes,
is just the investigation at this point,
yes.
okay? So we'll look into putting it out back with the idea it might need to have a pump to get back in and put back into the original line. So in terms of how to word that, do we need to be fancy?
Well, I think the board literally has to take a vote with the wording, including Rich's proposal about investigating, going out the back, exactly, Rich, and you can phrase that motion, and that the time frame allowed to do that investigation and report back to the health department on that is 3 months, and it would be
Okay.
3 months from today's date. And then are we extending? Clearly, we would have to extend the variance until that date. Now, the issue is
Part
going
of
to.
the motion also.
Excuse me, Paul?
That should be part of the motion also.
Yes.
May I
So-
offer some proposed language for town council to opine?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps the motion might include a motion to extend the existing permit for a period of 6 months, during which time an investigation will take place for the first and be reported back within 3 months. And if feasible, discussion about installation to be taking place within 6 months. If not feasible as a result of the investigation, the applicant can return to the board for further discussion.
Well,
What does town council think of that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a problem with that. I do think that, if you're allowing a period of time in which the property owner is allowed to investigate, then there's going to have to be some allowance for them to actually install if they determine that it is feasible.
and do we need to set that now, or could we do 3 months to investigate and then based on the findings, take that into account and then do an additional at that time?
You could do it either way, Mr. Chairman.
I
Okay.
would suggest we do it as part of this motion.
What's that?
I would suggest we do it as part of this motion.
So you're saying 2 to 3 months to do the investigation, like Rich said,
And then
put
an
on
additional 3
an
months to get it in.
additional, cut 3 months, so that would be 6 months total,
To be installed.
right, for installation. Okay. So Rich, we'll say
Yeah.
6 months total, 3
Yes.
months to investigate, 3 months to install.
Correct.
If feasible, with all due
Right, right,
respect,
right.
if it's not feasible, I'm asking that the business not be shut down.
Mhm.
We're still trying to comply and we're working towards a solution. So all
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking is that the permit itself extend the 6-month period, during which time we're giving you a report on the investigation and we're giving you a breakdown of how it can be done and when it will be done. But at least we're not in violation of the regulation.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in violation.
And Rich, do we need to specify that we're looking specifically at a solution that goes out back, that it takes into account the ledge, and that it takes into account that it may require a pump?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the issue of the pump, it's going to be close, and the probabilities are going to be a little bit short, no question. But the issue is the ledge is an issue, and it's basically an issue of cost. You know, that really the number one issue with it is what I'm saying is, would I want to expand it for other options? Not really, because clearly the out the front scenario is something that would be dramatic, would be costly. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with any projected numbers, but in the issue of shutdown and that kind of thing, those things are clearly on the table. And I think, and also too, in dealing with similar things to this in the past, the rear one, we've always found a way to get it done. And I guess, as I had said at the beginning of this thing, whether the board at some point wants to vote that I or not, that I go out to the site and with parties and kind of interject, some, not my experience of how things have happened and how things have worked out. We've never run into one that we couldn't deal with. Okay. But bottom line is that, yeah, I mean, I think the 3 months and the 3 months is reasonable. Therefore, we're not in the situation to put them in violation. And I think it's reasonable in that it shouldn't take dramatic amount of time, in all seriousness, to evaluate elevations and depths to any kind of refusal material kind of thing that you can do. It's not super difficult to do, but again, COVID and finding the contract that'll do it, whatever is always on the table. And then have that extra next 3 months to deal with, once you've worked all that out, what would it take to put it in the ground, and the feasibility of it. I mean, does it become a cost that's even higher than going out the front, kind of thing?
Okay.
I doubt it. I mean, I doubt it.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, sorry.
Can I just clarify, Eric? So,
Yep.
so basically the overall motion is going to be to extend Tropical Smoothies' current permit.
Yep.
Good standing, and their variance for another 6 months.
Mhm.
During that time frame, within the first 3 months, they're going to investigate going out the back as another
Mhm.
option for an exterior grease trap. And another 3 months to install it if feasible. If in their investigation it is not feasible, at the end of 3 months, they will reappear before the board to have further discussion.
Yes,
The only thing that I would add is
Go
that
ahead.
it should be appearing before the board after 3 months, one way or the other. Just
Okay.
to let the board
Okay.
know whether or not it's feasible. And
Okay,
if it is feasible, then in the next 3 months, they should be installing. And if it's not, then the board knows it needs to move forward on a discussion about a more permanent variance.
okay.
And that puts it at August 3rd, which is a Tuesday, which will be the day after our typical meeting on the 2nd. So,
I'm on vacation.
You're on vacation
I'm
now.
out of here.
No.
Okay. So with that as the proposal then,
Yes,
do I hear a motion?
I'll motion that unless Bill wants to,
Do I hear
but no, I will. Bill sitting there going,
Okay.
We need a
All in
second.
favor?
We need a second. Who
I
seconded?
think Mr. Sinowski just said so. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
aye.
That's
Aye.
unanimous. So thank you.
Thank you for your time and effort, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, 1 second to make sure everything is sorted appropriately. And I think we're going back to old business. I think that Donna was going to comment on UPS.
All right. All right, so we've been having as you know, we've been having ongoing issues with UPS. At this point in time, they've had 5 different violations at different times. The total is $9,400 at this point. So we've had the state involved. DLS has been with us, an inspector that's gone out to visit. Went back this past week and they've done some exciting things that were nice to see at the beginning, which they had the signing at the gatehouse for everybody to kind of sign in. Some signs inside on their TVs. They're trying to do a lot of education on the COVID-19 vaccine and having their employees, they can actually scan a bar, kind of sign up for going to get a COVID-19 vaccination. And so that's part of the education that they're doing. However, in the meantime, they're still having struggles with reporting the positive cases to us here at the Board of Health. In turn, the concerns are they really doing the correct protocol of cleaning based on their positive cases and results at that site? They are unable to tell you how many positive cases they had, where their last ones were. Their occupational health offsite is really the ones that are kind of managing that. So what they're doing right now is literally occupational health will send an email to kind of their offsite safety health manager, who then sends the email. He has 5 different facilities. He then sends an email to the person on site. That person on site, the manager, will send a calendar invite to the direct supervisor that has that employee to tell them their return to date work. So by the time that circle and that loop really ends up transpiring, it's very difficult to weigh in on. So that's what we've been working with them on right now. And then obviously the other thing is they have 2 areas that they work that they're very close and not being able to social distance and 6 feet apart. The state is very, very concerned on that one. It is a difficult thing for UPS, and their concern is keeping their timelines and such. Bottom line is the recap right now is we have a tentative Zoom meeting with the state on Wednesday to discuss further actions or education that need to occur.
Okay. Is there anything that we need to do other than be informed at this time?
Not at this time. If after Wednesday, if we certainly need any more involvement, we may have additional state visits that will occur to kind of correct the situation.
And those things will happen because as you know, we can't talk as board members can't talk because 2 of us constitute a quorum.
Right.
So is there anything that we need to make a decision on now in order to empower?
No, not at this time. Sue, I think you would agree. At this time, we've got a handle on it with the state, with the DLS, DPH. And even if we have to have OSHA involved, there's some conversation of that occurring too. Agree.
Okay. Okay. So, are they making any measures to get the social distancing under control or change the way they track cases?
No, so originally that they think their correction is this calendar invite right now, which I had a discussion or email correspondence with them again today, that timing is not accurate and not right. I can tell you that they have a facility engineer manager there, that his log is really close to what the state is getting and what Darcy is getting for people who are positive. So he's getting it direct from supervisors on site where to go clean, but yet their management or anybody else in occupational health aren't reporting kind of what he has. So there's just a big gap of disconnection.
Okay. So what's different with the Weston and Sampson this month?
Are you looking, oh, did you skip over?
54 Richardson.
Okay, did you skip over 85 High Street?
I read it.
Oh, okay, I just, okay. The Weston and Sampson, let me just see, hold on. Let me get to it in my file.
Yeah, so I have it right in front of me. It was 54 Richardson Road.
Right? The most recent results from all their test pits that they did in April.
But they're not having us dig the deep test pit at this time. That's on hold. And
Basically what they did is they did numerous monitoring wells
Mhm.
at the instruction of DEP. And while they were installing those monitoring wells, they also had to do specific testing on site. So this chart, which is very difficult to read, on the last page, basically you have the picture of all of the monitoring wells, and then on the last page, it gives you the results, which several of them are somewhat elevated. So these are sent to DEP, and DEP requires continued monitoring.
and they still do not want to dig a deep well for monitoring, correct?
Not that I've been told.
Okay. And was there something in particular that you wanted to point out with regard to 85 High Street?
Well, I just wanted to let you know that the letter was written on April 7th and mailed out to Mr. Raisbeck at 85 High Street on April 8th. After we had last month's board meeting, correctly to let him know that he had the 21 days to appeal the violation. As of current, Mr. Raisbeck is still in violation of our Board of Health small animal regulation, domestic animal regulation. Our maximum, based on a regulation that someone can have as far as chickens on their property in a residential neighborhood, is 20. Based on Mr. Raisbeck's setbacks, his property is set at 14. And not only is he currently continues to be not permitted, but but he has 45 chickens on his property. So we did receive on, I believe it came in Friday, and I was out of the office on Friday, but we did receive a letter saying that Mr. Raisbeck's attorney did file with the courts to appeal our violation letter. So at this point, we will wait for a court date on that.
Okay. And again, I think we established last time that we don't want to arbitrate what's a farm, what's not a farm. The town has not changed their position in terms of what the use of the property is.
Exactly. And
Okay.
I did include in this packet, Mr. Raisbeck had sent another email in between, basically kind of trying to discuss the fact that he feels that he was never officially invited to a board meeting. I look at the emails that went back and forth between him and the prior inspector, where she actually did invite him to a board meeting. And he never responded whether he was coming or not. Just responded basically asking what the agenda would look like if we had spoken to town council. And then his response was basically that he may need to look into legal counsel. He
Right.
asked that be included in the board packet, so that's why that's there.
But I don't think that it was ever to be a hearing.
It was not to be a hearing. It was to
Right.
basically, at the time, he was having discussions with Michelle stating that he felt that his property was agricultural use. He also used the words farm. And she basically said that's not how we deem it based on our current regulations. We go by property use, and invited him if he wanted to come before the board for discussion, he could. It was not for a formal hearing at that time.
But I think in terms of like a hearing, it's, again, we're not interested in determining what's a farm, what's not a farm. That we'll just rely on how Chelmsford, the town, deems it. And if it's residential, then our regulation applies.
This will now go to court.
Yeah.
And it
So,
will be determined by the judge.
okay. If anybody wants to make a motion to accept the old business,
I'll make a motion to accept the old business.
do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Now we have new business. Policy for vision and values acknowledgement and review.
So the select board recently had come up with, they had, several meetings around the visions and values for the town and the overall statement about vision and values and what the policy is for vision and values. So they adopted this vision and values statement basically to establish guidelines for our community and the municipal operations. So as members of any of the boards, they ask that this vision and values statement be given to every board member as well as to every employee, and that we get signatures stating that you are aware that this exists and that you've received this vision and value statement. So that's what that is.
What's the reason for this?
I would actually have to defer to the select board on that, but it's just a decision that members of the select board, in my opinion, felt strongly about. And they ended up voting that they feel that people should acknowledge that they've received it.
Okay. I didn't know if it's the kind of thing that it is required for some state initiative or.
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
basically around our vision of the town's vision of diversity, inclusion, being diverse and welcoming throughout the community in all aspects. I don't believe, you know, my understanding is that they would like people to acknowledge receipt of it. If people choose not to sign it, that's an individual choice. We as employees are required to sign that we have received it and that we've seen a copy of it.
Okay, and I guess the reason I'm asking is that if the issue is diversity, it seems to sort of bury that within a number of other, in quite a lot of other things. So, okay, so do we need to swing by the Board of Health or Department of Health office in order to sign that at some point?
I don't think you can sign it and just send it into us.
Okay,
It's not like you have to sign it in front of anybody. But if you just give us copies, then we'll save them as our board members.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
And now, do I have parking?
Oh, no, keep
No,
going
no, no,
down.
no. Okay,
It's the way it printed out,
I
sorry.
see. It's on the next page.
The bottom of the page is where it starts, the marijuana article.
Oh, okay.
And so this is with regard to cultivation, processing, transfer for marijuana establishments. It does not say that there would be a retail portion. The town residents have voted against retail in the past. And Sue, why don't you start? Because I think you and I have objections
Yes.
to this warrant or article.
So when this article was first brought to my attention, as far as the fact that it was going to be coming, a couple of months ago, we had a meeting with Evan in planning and a couple of the other departments, police department, town manager, and a whole big part of that discussion focused on the fact that this was more going to be on cultivation, and that there was never anything mentioned about any type of retail sales. It was not going to include retail sales. And basically, because our town, first of all, has a zoning bylaw against it, the town voted against it a few years ago. And with all of the efforts that we have done over several years with education and prevention within the Chelmsford community, to try to prevent substance use disorder and, you know, early use of marijuana amongst our teens, I was definitely always against the marijuana retail stores. So as you can see on this article, the marijuana retailer parts of it have been crossed out, although there is one part at the bottom, at the very statement, the first paragraph. Any other type of licensed marijuana related business except a medical marijuana treatment center and marijuana retailer. So last week on Wednesday, I was invited with the town manager, police chief, as well as the fire chief and two of our select board members to tour an indoor cultivation marijuana facility. And I will tell you straight up, the second I stepped foot, as soon as I rounded the corner and my window was down, it reeked. The odor was unbelievable. It was just absolutely overpowering and it was horrible. And this, we were outside at this point. We hadn't even stepped foot inside. So when I look at this regulation in the first paragraph, when I say a marijuana cultivator, both indoor and outdoor, I would automatically propose absolutely nothing outdoor, because what this smelled like, and it was all inside, was horrible. And the health department already gets numerous complaints from numerous different areas across town regarding nuisance and odor. And our phones would just be blowing up. Ultimately, whether the board supports this article or not has to be a board decision. It's not up to me as the health director, but I do have my concerns when it comes to any type of marijuana as far as children. Now, we do know that it's legal. We do know that people technically can grow, a household can grow up to 12 marijuana plants in their backyard per household. So that is already something that is in place, but this would be, you know, a huge building and with lots of different areas for cultivating inside, and the odor is not pleasant at all.
So,
And I know that some of the proposals as far as where it would be, like if you look at the use regulation, you know, manufacturing and, you know, commercial, industrial, and I think, you know, though some of those areas would involve obviously 129. And then you're also looking at some of the areas in Vinyl Square. And the areas in Vinyl Square all abut residential neighborhoods for the most part. So that's my take on it.
so for me, number one, I don't like marijuana. I think that the effects it has on developing minds, so we're talking under 26 years old, I think that in terms of the pruning that it does, that it affects on intelligence, that it has dangers that are long-term and not seen by the kids. I think that it's very important to kind of have have a multi-pronged approach into how you try to dissuade children. I think there's one thing for information. I think that you can, you know, have consequences when people, you know, break rules and such. But I think when you message it, I think that you have to be careful. And I think that anything that sort of paints it in a light that this is a good thing, that it earns money for the town, that we've made a lot of success, a lot of progress in reducing our rates of marijuana use amongst the teenagers in particular. And my fear is that anything that sort of validates it going forward, we're going to see a subtle change in those numbers. And so I am not for this, and I have concerns. So with that, if Bill or Rich want to make comment on their own thoughts on marijuana.
Eric, can I just make one more statement? I will say that that Paul Cohen did reach out to me and asked that I reach out on behalf of the select board to attend. They're discussing at their meeting tonight the warrant articles for town meeting. I don't know where they're at in that. I inform him that we were having a very lengthy meeting tonight and I wasn't sure. They did ask that one of us attend either tonight or next Monday night to weigh in on this article.
And I think I have the link for the select board meeting that I can click onto after this.
I just came from there, Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
So they did hear an update from town departments, police, water, sewer, fire. And they did acknowledge that I think the Board of Health submitted a letter. And they also acknowledged that this item will be continued until their meeting next week for you to be able to participate.
Okay.
So they did not make any final recommendations this evening.
Okay, so they're going to continue. So they've already gone over this subject. Okay. So, Bill,
Yes.
do you have any thoughts on this subject? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I figure it's a.
No, not really. I was a pharmacist in my trade, so I'm used to, dealing with drugs. I really don't have any issue, as far as, this is just a warrant? Is that what this is?
It's a warrant article for town.
Okay.
But it's a
Town
warrant article for, and Evan can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this would be a zoning bylaw change. So it would require 2/3 vote at town meeting in order to pass, to allow them in the specific areas designated within the warrant article.
Okay.
Hey, Rich, do you have feelings on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, in agreement with how the town voted in regards to, have facilities in town, period. And basically not, I mean, again, I understand, like Sue said, I understand what's allowable and what's not allowable in regards to the residents having access or whatever to the marijuana through medical or recreational or whatever. Okay, that it is what is. I just don't see this commercialization of it, okay, to that we need it in this town for what particular purpose. And particularly, I think as Sue said, clearly the outside stuff, not the home stuff, but the commercial things, and creates a whole myriad of issues of complaints, regretfully, that when they can't complain to anybody else, they complain to the health department, kind of thing. And we're again going to be stuck with a number of things that are going to be quite difficult to control. Noise and odor have always been complaints that you're, kind of swinging in the wind trying to deal with not any real solid places to go, but they expect that if they say it's a health problem to them, that you're supposed to do something for them. But there's not a lot of standing in regards to how much you can do. The state does. The state is very cute in how that they give options saying, local police, fire, health and whatever can enforce these regulations, but it's their regulation, and how far they may step into these things is a whole different ballgame. So you kind of left out. So no, I am not in favor of a number of these different, without having some more time specifically about some of the zones and how they actually fall within the town, what areas, might be involved with this, commercialization of these different entity businesses that could be there. I need to look at it a little bit closer, and between, I guess, this week and the next Board of Selectmen meeting, I'll look at it a little bit closer. But no, it's not, as a general statement, no, I'm not in favor of it. And I totally support you going to, represent the board in regards to your opinions in regards to the issue of marijuana and the issue of facilitating these kinds of businesses just for the almighty buck, I guess you want to call it that, but that's what it is.
Can I,
So,
can I ask a quick question? Can I just ask, just for my own, I know some of these, but not all of them. As I look at this proposal, as far as the different zones, Evan, can you just tell me what the abbreviations mean on the different zones?
Yeah, so these uses are proposed in 2 zoning districts. The first one's CB, roadside commercial. And then the second one is,
Where is that in town? Like, can you give me?
Littleton Road.
portions of Littleton Road.
Yeah.
Portions of Tingsboro Road, portions of Princeton Street heading into Vinyl Square, portions of Middlesex Street, the north side of Drum Hill Road, our zone CB, and then
That's
IA.
A lot of areas close to residential.
All of our commercial industrial zones directly abut or are in close proximity to residential zoning districts. That's the primary reason why the planning board's proposing only to permit these uses by special permit.
Okay, and what's CA? Oh,
So
CA.
the use is not permitted in the CA. The only other zoning district it's proposed to be permitted in is the IA limited industrial. That's primarily Route 129, Technology Drive, Groton Road, Route 40 on the Westford Town Line, a small area in South Chelmsford Village, and then Southwell Field, Williamsburg, behind Williamsburg as well.
Okay, so
what-
PB means planning board approval.
Correct.
And what is CD?
CD is general commercial. It's not allowed, not proposed to be allowed in the CD.
Okay, so this chart is wrong with its PB next to it? At least the chart's in front of me.
I don't know what chart you're looking at.
Well, that's what I mean. That's
We're
what I'm
looking
saying.
at, we're looking at the proposed article.
It should only be allowed in the CB, in the
Okay,
IA.
okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
On what we're looking at, Evan, just so that you know, and I pulled this off of the website, it's also under CD. It has planning board approval under CD as well. So
You
It's-
may have pulled an old one. I will double check with Paul tomorrow.
Okay.
not supposed to be under CD.
Correct. The one that I've printed off of what I think is the published
Okay.
warrant is correct.
Okay, so
Okay.
CD and IA. Okay, yeah, the one I have, maybe it was an older version. I thought we just pulled this last week, but anyway, okay.
Okay. I can't believe you didn't make some comment about Route 40 abutting Westwood with regard to aggregate. So,
So, Mr. Chairman, I didn't catch all of your meeting. I understand you submitted a letter. Sounds like there's some general concerns. Not to belabor the point this evening. From a zoning perspective, it's fairly straightforward. Other than that this particular use has a heightened sensitivity associated with it. But from a zoning perspective, it's no different than any other use. I'll give you some examples. There are plenty of uses in town that one may ethically or morally feel opposed to or have heightened sensitivity towards. That could be the mice facility on Kidder Road that breeds mice for medical experiments and so forth. So someone may be morally, ethically opposed to that. Lockheed Martin, makes missiles to kill people and blow up things. So I think the unique aspect for you is the health aspect. That is not necessarily a morally or ethically challenged scenario. You have your own set of data and you have your own set of kind of industry standards and expectations as to how this may play out. But I think you understand it's not open to the public. So from a zoning perspective, within the departmental review, the planning board's role working with the other Board of Health and police chief and fire chief and other departments is to figure out whether the negative impacts associated with zoning review can be reasonably mitigated. Odor and noise are likely the two major ones. As you know, there are many uses in town that have the same challenges. There's some technologies that are available and you guys are aware of them. My final comment, again, not to belabor, the outdoor cultivation is still within the proposal. My sense is that at a minimum, if this gets to town meeting floor and is a viable discussion, that will likely be one of several amendments to remove outdoor cultivation. It's pretty clear from this evening's testimony that the police chief would prefer outdoor cultivation not be an opportunity. So I don't expect the planning board at town meeting for that in and of itself to be a deal breaker for the planning board. Again, that all assumes that there's interest and viable discussion associated with passing the concept to begin with. So that's all I had. I know it was a high level kind of food for thought. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
okay, no, thank you. And I was going to suggest that we divide that there's two areas that before I go and say anything on behalf of the board next week, our first area of concern would be specifically the outdoor cultivation, the smell, that we get lots of complaints about that from a number of industries and so that we would be opposed to outdoor cultivation for that reason. Do I hear a motion to approve my ability to speak on that? Or do
I'll make a
people just-
motion. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve your, your opportunity to speak on this.
All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
And then the second thing is more generally that my concern with kids is that this is a multifactorial thing that you can tax, you can outlaw, that you can, stigmatize with truth campaigns and such. And that it might be a small piece, but anything that sort of puts it in a light that the town is a positive, the town is earning tax money off of this. We have a fear that this might affect usage, particularly in teens, and that is going to have effects on brain development and such. That is that okay if I say that on behalf of the board? Do I hear a motion?
Motion for you to do that?
Second,
Yeah,
and
second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I will speak to both of those next Monday.
Great.
I think that if that then concludes marijuana, there's a lifeguard variance.
Okay.
So this is a proposal for a weekday lifeguard variance from Richardson House condos. And they typically apply for a variance, a weekday lifeguard variance every year from us. One of our requirements for them applying for a weekday lifeguard variance is that they send us 3 months worth of data from the prior year, where they do their pool testing, their water testing, the numbers in the pool, bather load, et cetera, et cetera. Well, because of COVID last year, they and the requirements, they opted not to open. But I will say that they did send in their information regarding their CPO certification, their CPR and that type of thing, because they did not have the data, but they have always sent us in their data and they've always been in compliance with the data that we require in order to issue them a variance, because during the week, Monday through Friday, they truly did not have the numbers that we would feel would require a lifeguard on duty all the time. So I would recommend that the board vote in approval for Richardson House condos to receive a weekday lifeguard variance for this year,
I'm
2021.
going to say that my recollection is that they've been good citizens and we've never had problems with Richardson House.
Correct.
Yeah. By the way, did Radisson close
Yes,
permanently?
as of right now.
Okay. So
Yes.
back to Richardson House. Do I hear a motion to approve the lifeguard waive variance?
Weekday.
Yes, I'd like to make a
weekday.
motion for the Richardson House weekday waiver. Yes.
Lifeguard variance. Do I hear a second?
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think that's unanimous. So, now we have the monthly reports. Did you all get the same program this time? Except for Mark? Because I'm used to having these things like, look, sometimes it's handwritten, that's, it's just sort of like everybody's different. Now everybody has the big bright line across the top.
They all copied me, Eric. Donna took from Mark about coming back every single day and doing her summary, because I looked at their reports and I'm like, guys, like, how do you do this? If I ever sat down and wrote down every single They're out there doing inspections though, so they need to keep track and they do their reports and all that. If I ever tried to keep track of everybody I talk to in every email, I'd never get anything done.
There's still many things that both of us don't put down, but
Exactly, exactly. It just goes to show you how crazy busy we are.
Well, Mark's is always the one, if you actually zone in on like one section that inevitably deals with like rats and circuses or something like that. And you're like, wait, what's going on in town? So Einstein is permanently closed.
Yeah,
Einstein's, yes.
yeah. That was a surprise.
And I think you'll note on Mark's report, he noted, let's see.
That's why.
Yes, that as of last week, Feng Shui was closed for 14 days.
Yeah.
Ongoing and repeated food code violations over the past year. It wasn't just a one-time thing.
It was the same stuff we talked about last year, just so that we hadn't heard about it for a while.
And the thing is, they had a consultant, they were forced to hire a consultant. The consultant was doing, inspections every so often, and then they would kind of send the reports. They would just email them. They actually didn't, pick up the phone and call. And so I think with us being so busy with COVID and stuff, obviously it wasn't the most priority. And then most recently, another report came in, and then Mark went out there, and when he came back with his inspection form and the violation, it was deemed necessary that they close for 2 weeks. And then they'll have to be re-inspected before they're reopened.
Donna, what happened with the market basket?
At Market Basket, they had a customer had called to complain that one of their freezers, as they went to purchase some items on that top row, were not frozen items. So Mark had gone out to visit the first time and discovered that there may be problems with the freezer. Did speak to a part-time associate there. And then I followed up going with him to meet with the manager. And they didn't really determine what had occurred, whether it was a mistake by the associate putting items out that weren't frozen, or if there was a freezer determination. But on Mark's first visit, he did have them remove and get rid of everything that was not frozen.
Okay. And 7 Princeton Street, is that a residential property?
Yes, that's a residential property.
Okay. Okay. I'm never sure. Is this one we have to approve or
Actually,
acknowledge?
Dr. Meekle, I'm sorry, 7 Princeton Street was actually a business with the tires.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think you just approve other.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve other ones people have read through.
Well, I finished it, so I'll make a motion to approve other, and if
And I'll second it.
All in
all
favor,
right,
say
thank you,
aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, every meeting is different. We didn't have to do anything about beavers, or we didn't spend half the time talking about farmers' porches and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I guess today's mostly tropical smoothly. I'm thankful that Mr. Sanowski is still here at this point, at this hour. And I thank you for being willing to serve with us. And I'm hoping in short order that we're together and things calm down and we can actually have a little bit of a more social experience with maybe the pizzas coming back. That I've never seen personally, but
I haven't either.
Yeah. You haven't either.
That's because we're eating healthy now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, there.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Sure.
we'll
sure.
bring the salads.
Dr. Kaplan was the one who used to bring the pizza.
Right. Right. That's right.
So there you go, Dr. Meekle. I just put it
There.
right on.
All right. Put it right
Yeah.
on him.
So I'll be bringing the salads. So, okay. With that, is there anything else that we need to cover for tonight?
Any public input? The only one
Oh.
I see is Darcy.
Darcy, did you want to join in for public input?
No, no.
In that case, public input is open, public input is closed. And other than acknowledging that there was a fine for Aggregate Industries after we've had all those complaints over the years. Nothing else to say tonight. So with that, I will take, our next meeting will be on June 7th. Shall we go back to 6:15? I don't know why it ever got put to 6:15 in the first place.
I think we did 6:15. I think it might have been an issue for Anne Marie. I'm good with 6. I don't know if you guys are all good with 6 or if
Yeah.
it's time for anybody.
Good with
No,
that.
I was a couple seconds late for the fact that you get, to the grandkids, I had to get out the door, but other than that.
So would
6.
6 mostly work for everybody?
Okay, so why
Yeah.
don't we switch the time to 6 PM even?
Okay,
And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn and I want to say hi to Bill that I didn't get a chance to when we opened up, and thank him again for
Yes, thank
being
you.
here to
Thanks,
get a little input on some of the craziness that's existed over the years, so including me, so. All right, so I'll make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn. Okay.
So do I hear a second?
Second?
And all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. All right,
Okay.
great.
Take great care of yourselves. Stay healthy.